And we're back. Welcome to another portion of the Flow Arts Institute multi-part fire performer safety training video. My name is Dr. Howard Chen and I'll be taking you through the next few sections. Okay, let's talk about some important things, such as personal fire urgencies and emergencies, i.e. what do you do when you catch fire? So let me give you a scenario. So now you're spinning or juggling with fire and things seem to be going well. Let's say you just pulled off a new move, maybe impressed the object of your affection and you're feeling good, until you realize that, you're on fire. And it's not just your wicks that are burning. So now what? Now we're dealing with a powerful element here, one that raises the specter of quite a few different primal urges, not the least of which is fear. It's an overwhelming fear, one that's possibly coupled with pain and the sensation of burning flesh. In these circumstances, it's quite hard to remain calm, but that's really the most important first step. If you decide to take off running and screaming, hoping that the speed of the air rushing by your flailing body is somehow going to extinguish the flame, please take a moment to consider that the fire tetrahedron that we spoke about before, you remember the one that details the essential components of a fire? By running and flailing around, you're not only making it quite difficult for the fire safety personnel to reach you without putting themselves in harm's way, you're actually feeding the fire tetrahedron by increasing the amount of oxygen you're exposing the fire on your body to. And so, other than making the combustion process more efficient and your burns potentially worse, you're really not doing yourself any favors. So here, you've got a few options. You're on fire, so you can put out the fire yourself, or wait for the fire safety personnel to extinguish your unwanted fire. But in either case, you'll have to start with these steps. So step number 1, stop spinning or manipulating your fire prop. Step number 2, hold the fire props away from your body or drop them on the ground as long as the ground isn't flammable. Step number 3, take a look at the parts of your body that you can see. If you find the source of the flame, consider trying to extinguish it yourself, unless there's too much fuel or too much flame. Step number 4. Most importantly, do not expect the flames to burn out by themselves. While auto-extinguishing of small flames is possible, depending on the amount of fuel feeding the flame, don't count on it. If you'd like to attempt putting out the errant fire on your body, consider these steps. Number 1. If the fire is smaller than the palm of your hand and you can see the full extent of it, pat the fire out with your hand. You are wearing fire protective gloves, right? Number 2. If the fire is larger than that, or you can't see the full extent of the fire on your body, or there's no fire safety personnel around to help you, first shout for help, and then consider the old sequence of stop, which you've already done, drop, meaning get on a non-flammable area of the ground where there's no fire, and roll on the ground and not into more fire. Step 3. There's other last-ditch self-extinguishing options, which include wrapping yourself in fire-retardant fabric or using the appropriate fire extinguisher on yourself. I don't recommend it, but if you have to, close your eyes, close your mouth, and don't inhale. Now, if you have the attention of fire safety personnel, these are the steps that should be taken. Number 1. The fire safety personnel will shout your name or other identifying characteristic of yours and indicate the location of the errant fire on you. Number 2, make verbal or eye contact with the fire safety personnel and ask for help extinguishing the errant fire. Number 3, stand still, hold your arms out to the sides, keep your feet shoulder width apart, and await the arrival of the fire safety personnel. If the distance is great, move slowly towards the fire safety personnel. Number 4. Once the fire safety personnel reaches you, stand still in the position we talked about before. They'll attempt various methods to extinguish the errant fire on your body, and follow their instructions exactly, and don't attempt to help unless asked, as your own efforts may actually get in the way of their fire extinguishing efforts.
Hey, Zan,
I think you're on fire.
Help! Help!
Okay. Here we go. Looks good. See you soon. So, let's turn our attention to post-burn care. After the burn, it's a good idea to stop performing, if possible, to fully assess the extent of the burn and seek medical care if necessary. It's also a good time to assess if there are any steps that could have been taken to prevent the accident. While full details about the medical care of burns in the field is really beyond the scope of this video, the same general principles of burn care that you already know about apply. For minor burns, cleanse the wound gently with soap and water, do not rupture any blisters that have already been formed, and wrap the affected area with sterile dressing. Now, if the burn blisters are already open, apply some topical antibiotic to the blistered areas after cleaning the wound, and again, wrap the affected area in a sterile dressing. Pain control can be achieved with over-the-counter Tylenol or Advil. Even topical anesthetics can also be used for pain control. So now that we've dealt with one of the more serious consequences of fire performance, let's discuss a few illustrative scenarios where the stakes may not be quite as high, but the timely actions and reactions of the performer and the fire safety personnel are just as vital. So here's the first scenario. Let's call it the performer on fire. Imagine that you're spinning fire poi at another performance and things are going well as usual. You're smiling, making all of your transitions, wowing your audience. And to up the ante, you try a newer move that you've picked up recently. But as you're transitioning from one plane of motion to another, the chains of your prop tangle together, but not in any way that's exposing you or your clothing to flame. Try as you might, you're unable to untangle your tool by yourself, and the wicks are still on fire. So what's your next step? So, if you said to yourself something about asking for assistance from the fire safety personnel, you're right. It's an excellent place to start. Make eye contact with a fire safety personnel who's probably already watching you, or verbally ask for their help.
Safety! Help!
You'll likely be approached by the fire safety personnel whom, while wearing long fire-resistant gloves, might actually be able to help untangle your prop. Now, alternatively, if the fire safety personnel can't actually easily untangle the prop, or if the risk of injury to either the performer or the fire safety person is judged to be too great, the fire safety personnel may instead offer to extinguish your prop. So, let's use another scenario to discuss another prop mishap. Let's call this the prop dropping or launching scenario. So you're spinning quickly, on fire, and try a new release move that you've been practicing all day. You're not quite sure what happens. Maybe the prop is moving a little bit faster than you expect or something, but it flies out of your hand and makes a beautifully graceful arc through the air and lands 15 feet away, still burning, at the edge of the fire performance area, landing next to a mom holding her newborn baby. Okay, so what now? Now, if the fire safety personnel isn't already aware, alert them. Very likely, however, they've watched your prop as soon as it left your hand, and they're already likely to be in motion. However, it's important to remember that their responsibilities are primarily to address dangerous situations which involve the audience and the venue. It's also tempting to think that you can chase your lit prop down, but also remember that you may already be holding on to another lit prop. In addition, unless the fire safety personnel obviously needs help, consider letting them handle the situation. If the tool is within easy reach and it's not broken, and you can do it safely, by all means, reach down and get your prop. Finally, here's the last scenario. Let's call it the hit in the head with a prop scenario. You've been spinning fast to this great song that's got a driving beat. Spinning faster than usual, and things are going great until smack. You hit your head with a prop. You've hit your head so hard, you're momentarily dazed. and a few seconds go by and you notice that you're still holding onto the prop, but awkwardly. You check your head for fire, but don't hear or smell or feel any sizzling. The fire safety personnel approaches you and asks if you're okay and suggests that it's probably best to drop your tool and stop spinning until you recover, which you agree to. Continuing to spin after trauma is hazardous for all individuals involved, not just you, but also everyone around you. So let's talk about some extinguishing considerations. The manipulation of your prop ends when you decide it ends. When you run out of fuel, or when the choreography that you're performing ends, really whichever comes first. Now, if you've run out of fuel and your wicks self-extinguish, so be it. Take your extinguished tools and move slowly towards the exit designated for fire performers. However, if you've ended the manipulation of your prop and your wicks are still on fire, there's a general process to extinguishing your props. The Flow Arts Institute recommends the following steps. 1. Stop manipulating your prop, being careful not to burn yourself or other people or structures in the process. 2. Move slowly and unobtrusively towards the closest unoccupied or your prearranged fire safety personnel. Make contact with them and then ask if they're willing to extinguish your tool. Number 3. Lay, but don't throw your prop down on the center of their fire suppression cloth or inside their fire suppression device. Now, you can assist the fire safety personnel with your prop as necessary, but be sure to move at the speed of your fire safety personnel and be careful not to relight your prop with other lit wicks. Step 4 is slowly remove your tools from the fire suppression cloth or device only when you're okayed by the fire safety personnel. And step 5, take your tools unless otherwise agreed and move slowly towards the exit designated for performers. So let's talk about some afterburn considerations. After burning, it's best to give both yourself and your wicks a chance to cool down. As we've previously discussed, the combination of the hot wicks and the hot metal parts on your fire performance prop, combined with the ignitable vapors from the fuel depot, can lead to an unexpected and catastrophic ignition of the fuel depot. Best to stay away from any sources of fuel vapor until your wicks cool down a bit. Now, if you need to continue performing for another reason, it's really best to use another set of tools rather than rushing to refuel your just burned wicks. In addition, you likely need a physical, mental, or emotional break yourself. Consider spending a few moments taking care of your needs: water, fresh air, hand washing, and face washing. This is a good time to assess your body and hair for previously unknown burns and injuries. And it's also a good time to assess if anything could have been done better to make the whole process a safer one. In summary, in this video, we talked about the multiple aspects of safety in regards to fire performers. We spoke about financial and legal safety, ethics, pre-ignition inspections, peri-ignition considerations, extinguishing considerations, and post-burn considerations. And at the end, we spoke about managing fire and prop emergencies and urgencies. Well, that's it for this segment of the Flow Arts Institute Fire Safety Video Series. Thanks again for watching this video on the safety training of fire performers. Now, if you've gotten this far, you've significantly improved your fire safety knowledge as it pertains to fire performers. So congratulations on taking steps to make your performance and the performance of others safe. Now, if you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to take a look at our video, which details the training of fire safety personnel. So, for the Flow Arts Institute, I'm Dr. Howard Chen.